On this episode of the Hockey Nuts podcast, we get you caught up with the NHL headlines from the past week. We also get you caught up with everything that has happened to date in the World Cup pre-tournament games. Then, we give you team-by-team previews of all 8 teams in the Atlantic Division. All this plus the KHL Minute and our picks of the week coming up next.
Shut up and sit down.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Hockey Nuts podcast. My name is Wayne Halley. I'm here with Steve. How you doing, Steve?
Doing good tonight, Wayne. Good to be with you.
All right. We got a lot to talk about tonight. We're both really excited because we have been watching for the past almost a week now live hockey that is based here in North America. So we're pretty excited about it. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead, before we start talking about the World Cup, we'll go ahead and run down through a bunch of the headlines that have gone on around the NHL. As of right now, there really isn't a whole lot going on in the NHL with individual NHL teams as training camps haven't gotten underway yet. All I've been able to see, for the most part, and Steve, I don't know if you're seeing the same thing, is pretty much you're just seeing a lot of captains' practices, informal practices, and that kind of stuff. There just hasn't been a lot going on with the NHL.
Teams are definitely gearing up, but I don't hear much more than team meetings and informal practice type settings.
Yeah, most of the players are starting to venture back to their NHL cities and their NHL teams. But in the meantime, we have this World Cup tournament that we've been talking about for the last several weeks, and the preliminary or the pre-tournament, whatever you want to call them, those games have gotten started, and we've been watching them, and I don't know about you, but I've been pretty impressed with the play so far.
Yes, quite impressed with it. It's been a good thing. I've been impressed with the play of Team USA. They didn't do well in that second game, but they are definitely a gritty, grinding, tough team, and that may just be what's needed to win this thing.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I agree. They're going to be a fun team to watch. But anyway, let's just go ahead and run down the few NHL headlines that we were able to come up with, and we'll go from there. The first headline I've got is that Steven Gionta has recently signed a tryout contract to play with the New York Islanders. Now, whether or not he'll make the team is another question. That's the way these tryout contracts work. Essentially, is it's a team giving a guy an opportunity to play. You know, how he plays will determine whether or not he makes the team.
It was at the top of my list too. So
yeah.
It looks like that happened on September 12th.
Yep. Yeah, just a couple of days ago. So Steven Gionta, the BC kid, I believe, isn't he?
Boy, you got me there.
I know Brian Gionta was, and I believe Steven also played there. I should remember because I remember the Gionta brothers. They never played together, but they did come. I was still living in Maine at the time, and I did remember they came and lit up the University of Maine pretty good. Those guys were pretty good in college. On to the next one. Next one, Las Vegas keeps coming up in the headlines. Seems like their owner just doesn't want to have the spotlight come away. I guess it's typical Vegas, isn't it? They like to grab the spotlight and hold on to it. Yeah. More rumors coming out of Las Vegas in that the Las Vegas team seems to have been narrowed down to 3 names at this point. And of course, their owner seems to know exactly which name they're using, but let me see if I can find some quotes here. It says Las Vegas will have Knights as part of its nickname and red as one of its colors, owner Bill Foley said in a radio interview last Friday.
Yeah.
So it's like he's just teasing bits and pieces out. Like,
yes,
it's kind of interesting.
I get the strong feeling that it's going to be the Desert Knights, but I just get that impression. I feel, which if he chooses that name, I really can look at that team, and if if I didn't know anything about hockey, that would really focus on Las Vegas. I think that'd be the best of what he has in his pool to pick from, the best nickname he can come up with. Because they don't want gambling in the name or in the nickname.
They don't want any reference to gambling. So, yeah, some of the other quotes he said, we have our colors picked. We have our basic logo picked. It needs some refinement.
Yeah.
We've moved some color schemes around, and the team will be something Knights. And then he spelled it out. KNIGHTS. We have the name. So he's obviously decided on the name. He did not reveal what other word would be connected to the word Knights, but he did admit again it would not be Black Knights, his preferred choice, but one that was used by the U.S. Military Academy, which is the college that he went to. Earlier reports said Foley's management group has secured the names Golden Knights, Silver Knights, and Desert Knights. So you think it's going to be Desert Knights?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Golden Knights. And you watch, both of us will be wrong.
Yeah, that's right. I could see you being right there, but strange things, yeah.
Because I tweeted, probably 6-8 weeks ago, I tweeted that I referenced the big famous Las Vegas sign that you see as you're coming into the city.
Yeah.
It's got all these different colors on it. It's got red, it's got gold, it's got some blue on there and white, of course. That big famous Las Vegas sign that everybody knows, right?
Yeah.
And I tweeted out that you watch that this Las Vegas team will choose those colors or a variation of those colors to represent their team, which actually, if they used all of those colors, would look a lot like the Florida Panthers, because they have red, they have gold, they have blue, they have a number of different colors in their logo.
Yeah.
And if it goes that way, I'd be disappointed because, when you get a new team, you want to see some new colors,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Those guys are primed though for black, red, white, just the deck of cards colors again. It just seems to be coming up and up over again, but stranger things have happened.
Yep. Yeah, but it looks
I just hope it's not the Sand Knights. I hope that one has been taken off the list and thrown in the trash can, because
the only three that this article mentions is Golden Knights, Silver Knights, and Desert Knights. So hopefully the Sand Knights are out of. Because I agree. Sand Knights wouldn't be. That would almost sound like a Star Wars reference to me more than. more than a hockey team, but anyway. Yeah. And of course he went on saying, he's happy about the jerseys. He thinks they're going to be great looking jerseys. The colors will be reflective of the name. See, he seems to be dropping little hints. This is why I say it's going to be Golden Knights. Yeah. He says the colors will be reflective of the name. It will have certain colors that will be reflective of the Las Vegas environment. Like red rock, that red color. So I see more like a Phoenix Coyotes red with, some gold trim, a little bit of black. That's what I'm seeing coming out of this. That's kind of my 2 cents of taking the little hints that he's dropping and running with it.
Yeah. I see where he said, though, that it is very doubtful that they will have the name in place by the time the preseason games with the Los Angeles Kings are going to be played there on October 7th and the 8th. That is unlikely the name will have been decided by that time.
Yeah, it looks like, or at least ready to be announced anyway. Mm-hmm. It looks like it's already been decided, but they're not ready. They're not going to announce it until they got jerseys to show us. So, and it looks like those won't be ready until probably a week or two after those games. So, anyway, enough with Las Vegas. They're not playing for another year, so let's move on. Chris Versteeg signed a tryout contract with the Edmonton Oilers. There was a lot of speculation because I can't remember why, but for whatever reason, he was going to go play over in Europe, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out. I don't know if it was visa issues or I don't know the details on why he got or why he was forced to come back here, but once it was decided that he was going to be coming back here, then there was a lot of speculation as to which teams were going to go after him, because from what I understand, there were quite a number that were interested in his services. But it looks like he has chosen the Edmonton Oilers, which is kind of interesting. That adds another. Looks like the Oilers are trying to add some veteran guys to go with those younger guys that they have. This is another guy like Milan Lucic, who has won a cup before and can bring that veteran presence, knowing what it takes to go through the cup, and he can convey that to the rest of the team. Between him and Luch, they can really teach these young kids what it takes to be a pro at this level. So should be interesting. I fully expect Versteeg to make the team in this case. Not so sure about Giunta, but Versteeg for sure will. I don't know about you, but I think he'll definitely make the team.
I agree with you 100%. What you said.
Now, whether who is going to get bumped as a result, we don't know yet, but we'll see that as training camps get going. Okay, the Bruins have moved into a new practice facility. Have you seen any photos or videos?
I have not, and I'm sitting here. I did not know about that until we convened for this, the pre-meeting before our podcast. I did not know that they had moved into a new practice facility.
Yeah, I knew they were building it because they've been talking about it for the last year or so, that they've been working on this nice new facility, but I hadn't seen any pictures or any videos or anything like that of this new facility. And then about a week or two ago, I watched a bunch of interviews with a bunch of players. They were talking about how spectacular this place was. And, I just thought, chalked it up to, guys that just they're moving from an old dungy arena that they'd been for 30 years to, a brand new facility. Of course they're going to like it. I didn't think anything of it. But then when they made this announcement and they showed pictures of this place, and Nesson, the local sports channel up there in the Boston area, had videos of this place, I was completely floored and amazed at this place. It is an amazing complex. Wow. The whole thing is dedicated strictly for them. Obviously, when they're not using it, they're going to be renting out the ice for youth hockey in high school and such to use too. But it's right on the Mass Turnpike as you're heading into Boston.
Oh yeah,
just a few miles out of downtown. It's real close. And as you drive in, and I don't know if I think it's just outside. Like if you're driving into Boston on the Mass Pike. It'll be on the right-hand side. You'll be able to see a big, huge Bruins logo on the side of the building. And you'll be going right past it. And the ice surface itself is actually up on the second floor. As I understand it, underneath, on the bottom floor is either a parking deck or some sort of a storage or parking or a combination of the both. Underneath the ice arena, and the ice arena is up above, and the whole wall that is facing the highway is all glass.
Oh wow.
So lots of natural light coming in, and I've always loved, since I was growing up, and I've been in, as a player, been in many arenas growing up all over New England, and I've always loved playing in places that had natural light coming in. I don't know why, I just like natural light coming into the building. As you play. Maybe it makes you feel like you're outdoors. I don't know what it is, but it's just always been a thing of mine that the more natural. And this place, one whole wall is nothing but glass.
Wow.
And it's got lots of natural. If you get a chance, go to Nesson.com and take a look at the videos that they've got there of this new place. It is quite spectacular. And then of course they've got dedicated locker room training, lounge areas for the players. I mean, it's basically a NHL players hangout.
That is really something.
So that's something that's all theirs that nobody else can use at that point. But it's a first class facility, and it should help recruit players coming to Boston.
Absolutely, absolutely. That yeah. When people take a look at something like that, and then they go to see something that's 30 or 40 years old. It makes a big difference. Sure, it does.
Yeah, like, for example, the practice facility that used down here for the Carolina Hurricanes. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's an arena that's probably 30 years old. The ceiling is 15 feet above the ice. I mean, it's tiny. Yeah. Tiny arena. Yeah. And it's just not, they basically moved into one of the local arenas, and, they built a locker room off the end of the building so that's all theirs. But the ice surface is used not only for Hurricanes, but for youth hockey as well. And it's just a tiny arena, very low roof. So, how these plays where the NHL guys, defensemen will flip the puck sky high out of the zone,
yes,
to get rid of it without sending it over the glass. Well, you can't do that play in the practice facility that Carolina has because the roof is too low.
Oh, wow.
So, but the place that they have up there in Boston it's amazing. You got to check it out. Anyway, another retirement happened this past week. Paul Gaustad announced his retirement. And let me pull up the article real quick here. But he's only 34 years old. So he played in 727 regular season games over 11 seasons with the Sabres and Predators. He had 2 goals and 4 assists in 63 games with the Predators last year. So obviously, I believe they had him in a fourth line role. Probably had him as a healthy scratch several games. So I think he saw the writing on the wall and decided to call it a year, or call it a career for that matter.
Yeah. I guess that I'm trying to think of the last team he played for.
It'd be the Predators.
Yeah.
He was on the Predators last year. So he's a native of Fargo, North Dakota. Was the 22nd overall pick in the 2000 NHL draft. Made his debut on March 24th, 2003 with the Sabres and was traded to the Predators in 2012. Mm-hmm. I remember him most for his time in Buffalo, obviously with Buffalo playing Boston so many times. Mm-hmm. But he was a good face-off guy. I do know that. So he was used a lot as a face-off guy. So probably, face-off guy / defensive specialist was probably his claim to fame. And last couple of years of his contract, more of a third, fourth, bottom 6 guy. So I guess he decided he's had enough of hockey and he's moving on. As are we. All right. This one I pulled up just because I think the name of it was very interesting. The Sharks have their own beer. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that. No, Wayne, I did not know that.
They are partnering with Gordon Birch Brewery, a local brewery out of San Jose, and the brewery decided that they are going to name a beer after the Sharks, and you're not going to believe what they decided to call this beer.
The Desert Knights Killers or Slayers beer.
No, they're calling it Chum Red Ale. Sounds pretty appetizing, doesn't it?
Boy, I'd love to take a swig of that.
So you're going to be able to buy Chum Red Ale at the SAP Center during Sharks games. And I guess you could be able to buy bottles of it in local stores in the San Jose area. So those of you who are listening, that if you happen to be in the San Jose area and would like to send us a couple of bottles of Chum Red Ale, we are definitely willing to give that a try.
Yes.
As bad as it sounds.
Yeah.
Looking at a bottle of it here, it's got the label of it looks like a Sharks jersey. And then it's got the name, dry hopped red ale. It's just called Chum. Kind of interesting.
Words escape me at this time, Wayne.
When I saw the name of it, I'm like, oh, we have to add this. It's just too good not to. All right, on to something a little bit more hockey related. The Blue Jackets extended the contract of both John Davidson and who's the president of hockey operations, and GM Jarmo Kekalainen Both contracts were extended through the 2018-2019 season. So obviously the owners feel that those two guys are doing a good enough job to extend their contract for another year. I don't know if it was a year or 2 years that they extended it by. So,
yeah, John Davidson used to do the games with the Rangers. He and Sam Rosen before he moved on, and so I know a little bit about him. He's been in Columbus now for several years.
Yeah, and he's been around hockey forever.
Yeah,
I think if I remember right, growing up, I think he was a player.
Yeah, he was a goalie for the Rangers.
That's right. Yeah,
he was.
I remember him as a player. Like, he was late in his career when I first started watching hockey. So,
Yeah.
But
among other teams, he may have played for other teams, but I know he was a goalie for the Rangers. So, but he's been in Columbus now for quite some time, several years. He was instrumental in that trade that took Marian Gaborik away from the Rangers to Columbus. Flew the team plane up there and picked him up. Just him and I guess the big wigs of Columbus picked up Marian Gaborik and flew him to Columbus and all this stuff. And he definitely knows the hockey environment, and he knows the New York Rangers very well too. So
he made a few comments. Davidson, he made a few comments. He said the Blue Jackets are on the upswing with the young players that they have, including center Alexander Wenberg and defenseman Seth Jones and Ryan Murray. Their American League affiliate, the Cleveland Lake Erie Monsters, just won the Calder Cup last season. So now he's looking forward to some of the players from there to eventually make their way up to the Blue Jackets. He stated he's got a plan. They're going to stick to the plan, and he's expecting the team to be better in the years to come.
Yeah.
So time will tell.
Time will tell. You're right.
For now, he has until the 18-19 season to make an impact or not.
As I said, I think Columbus is going to be a team to watch this year in the Metro.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens.
Okay, George Peros joined the NHL Department of Player Safety. Mr. Mustache.
Yeah, he's a cool guy, man. I like George Peros very much. And I learned a lot about him on that podcast with JR and Jaffe.
Yeah.
He's one of the guests they've had in the recent months. And he's a good guy, man. He really is. And he's great for hockey. He will excel in that role in player safety. He's custom made for that type of a position in the executive side of the NHL.
Yeah, and I was going to comment that the Department of Player Safety, they seem to be looking toward these former tough guys.
Yeah.
As guys to be key roles in that department. Obviously, those guys would know more than any, particularly in terms of the concussion situation, and the league's desire to cut down on head injuries and head-related concussion, that type of stuff. And Peros, obviously, as a player, if you're not familiar with him, was more known for what he did with his fists than what he did with his stick.
Right.
But the guy's brilliant. I mean, isn't he?
He's very smart.
Isn't he a Harvard guy?
I think he's Princeton.
Okay.
He played hockey at Princeton.
I knew he was an Ivy League guy. So.
Yeah, he's a Jersey guy.
Okay.
And he's very close friends with Jeremy Roenick.
Oh, really?
So he played high school and went through the New Jersey system. I can't remember whether he decided to go up and play in the Ontario Hockey League or take a stint in for a year somewhere. But he wound up playing hockey in Princeton.
Yep.
And
so yeah, he joins a core group of former players: Stefan Quintal, Patrick Burke, and Chris Pronger.
He also won a Stanley Cup, with the Anaheim Ducks.
That's right, he did.
Yep. So he's hoisted the cup. He knows that feeling.
Yeah.
I wonder if there was any chum red ale in the cup back then.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, he says, and one of the things that I was always impressed with him, as tough as he was, I don't remember if he's ever had any kind of suspension for being dirty. He was tough, but not dirty.
Right.
Which is, it's a fine line trying to be that guy.
Yeah.
Whereas some guys, get suspended over and over and over again for being dirty. He wasn't one of those guys.
Yeah, I think he's a class guy. I really do.
So I think he'll do well in that role.
It's a great pick for the Department of Player Safety.
Yep. So, and the last NHL related article that I've got talks about the Vancouver Canucks. They've signed a trio of players to professional tryouts, including veteran winger and former Carolina Hurricane Tuomo Ruutu.
Yeah.
The 33-year-old Finn will join center James Shepherd and goaltender Kevin Carr at training camp beginning on September 22nd.
Hey, Wayne, of those three, don't you think Tuomo Ruutu stands the best chance of making the Canucks based on a successful tryout?
If he's healthy. That's the big question with Ruutu.
Yeah.
He's got a long history of injury issues.
Mm-hmm.
At least
Right.
He's probably, in his time at Carolina, he probably spent more time on the sidelines than he did playing. At least it feels like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if he's healthy, I think he would be the best of those three. Kevin Carr, I'm not familiar with him at all. James Shepherd, I'm vaguely familiar with him. But Ruutu definitely would be the best of the three.
Yeah, I agree with you
on that. So that's all I had, unless you have anything else for NHL related.
Yeah, I had two additional things that I wanted to bring up real quick if we could.
Yeah, go ahead.
One being the Edmonton Oilers opened Rogers Place on Thursday. They had the grand opening ceremonies on Thursday, September 8th.
Yes.
And Wayne Gretzky did skate around the rink and talked about it quite a bit. He's very impressed with the place, and they're moving his statue from the old Northlands Coliseum. It's going to be there at Rogers Place. Their first game is scheduled for September 26th. They're going to play a preseason game against the Calgary Flames, and then the first regular season game is opening night here in North Carolina. That's going to come on at 10 p.m. against the Calgary Flames. That's October 12th. So I might actually take a gander at that and see the new place, with my own eyes.
Oh, I'll absolutely be watching unless I have to work the following morning or unless I'm reffing that night. I don't know what night. What does the night October 12th fall on?
That's going to be a Wednesday.
Oh yeah, I won't be reffing. So yeah, I'll probably watch that game too.
Yeah. I don't think I'll miss that.
No.
But that was one, and the second one, did you read where Patrick Roy did open up about his decision to leave Colorado? There's an article on it. It was related directly to the pre-tournament game that was played at the Videotron Center in Quebec, and I couldn't tell you, it might have been Canada playing there against North America. I don't know who it was, but whoever played there at the Videotron Center in Quebec.
That was the North America-Europe game, the first one.
And that Patrick Roy was there for that game.
Yep, he was.
And he opened up a little bit more about why he left Colorado. He cited philosophical differences with the type of players they were bringing in and management to their decisions to continue to do so, and in the people who were working for the team. He said he had philosophical difference. He says nothing more than that. And, he didn't say it as it was hard. He just basically said we had differences on philosophy of hockey, and then I just decided to move on. He said he was a little bit he said he was just a little bit different in the way he thought the team should be run. And also I found out that he is under contract for this upcoming season. So if anything does materialize where he would coach another team, for example, let's say Montreal, all discussions and everything would have to go through the Colorado Avalanche. He's still on a contract with them for a year.
I'm sure they'll let him go, though.
I'm sure they would too.
Yeah.
And another thing that he brought up was, he's very interested in Quebec and their NHL franchise. And I think you can read the writing on the wall there.
Yep.
I think that's what
I think he wants to make himself available. But he'll probably want control of the team more than what Colorado was going to let him have. Because obviously it seems that's one of the reasons he left, is he wanted more control over the players that were chosen for the team, and they didn't want to give him control. So
let's face it, Wayne, he coached in the junior leagues for a long time, not just 1 or 2 years. He chose to stay there over certain circumstances that came up. He is well experienced as a coach, well seasoned, and he did take Colorado to the playoffs. So I'm sticking up for him a little bit in what I'm saying, but he may have done what he felt was the best thing for his future.
And I agree that I think a guy like him, the way he is, I think a new team or an expansion team would be a great fit for him.
I agree.
He'll be able to mold that team the way he sees.
That's right.
And he's proven in the past he can do it. So,
but that's all I had. Those were the 2 additional articles that I'd wanted to bring to the fore, and that's it. I think we're on the same page.
Well, and let's go ahead and move on to the World Cup. And if you have been under a rock the last couple of weeks, you may not know that they've been playing games. Yeah. Of course, none of them have counted yet, but you wouldn't know that by watching the play on the ice. I was off. The first games were on Thursday, the 8th, and I was off from work that day, so I had the luxury of being able to watch those games live. Yeah. And the first 2 games, although they were fast, they were not very intense in terms of physicality. But again, given the teams involved, I guess you could expect that. First 2 games were Sweden and Finland, and Czech Republic and Russia. And in those games, Finland beat Sweden in overtime. Russia beat the Czechs in regulation 4-3, and then the Finland game was 3-2. Both of those games, they were fun to watch, but it looked like an NHL All-Star game. They were just skating up and down the ice. Nobody was hitting each other, and it was just a fun to watch, very highly skilled game. The third game that night was the North America team, which has kind of captured the spotlight of the entire hockey world. That's the under 23 or 23 and under team made up of Canadian and American players. They shut out Europe in the third game on last Thursday, 4-0. And they carried the play that game. I know you probably watched that game.
I did watch that game.
But they fast. That team,
very fast.
Yeah.
Connor McDavid is just greased lightning on the ice.
Yep.
I think he's faster than Dylan Larkin, but who am I? I think he's the fastest player in the NHL.
Well, I think he was still hurt during the All-Star break last year, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see.
Yes.
I would like to see him and Dylan Larkin square off each other in the All-Star Games skating competition. That would be an interesting race. But yeah, the North Americans, they basically dominated the European team. Now, to Europeans' credit, there are a bunch of guys that have never played with each other before, because it's essentially players from, I think it's 10 different countries that are represented.
Yes.
On the European team.
Yes.
And they're, they're just trying to gel, get to know each other, and come together as a team themselves. So, and those North American kids, yes, it's players from Canada and the U.S., but a lot of them have played with each other before. They've certainly played against each other before in like World Junior tournaments. So they all know each other very well. So, but they are going to be a fun team to watch. Now on Friday the 9th, there was only one game, but it was a doozy. I don't know if you saw that game. Friday night, USA versus Canada.
Yes, I did.
The Americans beat Canada 4-2 in that game, and
I was doing cartwheels. I was very happy about that.
that was a very fun game to watch. It
Yeah.
was fast. It was physical. I believe Ryan Kessler got a game misconduct for a hit that he laid.
Yeah, that was really good.
I can't remember now who he hit. But anyway, it was an incredible game to watch, and it just looked like that game had taken place a day or two after the last time they played each other in the Olympics a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
That the hate from the Olympics carried over into this tournament. So,
and I don't, Wayne, to underscore what you're saying, I felt like the Americans made a statement real early on in that game. We are a physical team and we are not going to be intimidated. And I really was very glad they did that. I.e. Ryan Kessler being suspended for the game. I think it was just a statement that they were trying to make, that we're gonna play tough rock'em sock'em hockey, and you better be ready.
Yeah, it looks like Team USA, and of course, Coach Tortorella, that's his style anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Team USA was built specifically for the matchup against Canada, and they know they probably can't keep up with Canada in terms of speed and overall skill, but they certainly can keep up with them and probably surpass them in physicality. And it looks like they built that team, and that is how they're going to try to beat Canada when they play each other in the tournament.
Yeah,
is like the old saying from the movie Miracle, that Herb Brooks, he didn't build the team made from the best players. He built the team from the right players.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very good, Wayne.
So
the puck battles against the wall.
Yep.
Coming up next, what is it, next Tuesday night, the 20th? Oh, I will be in front of my TV set. You better believe I'll be watching every second of that game.
I'll probably DVR it and watch it again later on to analyze it a little bit further. But yeah, it's going to be a fun game to watch when they play each other for real. Now on to the weekend on the 10th, Czechoslovakia beat or Czech Republic. I'm sorry, Czechoslovakia doesn't exist anymore. Shows how old I am. The Czech Republic beat Russia 2-1 in a shootout. Sweden beat Finland 6-3, so that equaled their series, and then Canada came back and beat the USA 5-2. I didn't see any of those games because I had to work Saturday, so I missed the whole thing. I did catch the tail end of the Canada-USA game, and it was pretty much more of the same from the other night, from Friday night. So,
right.
More intense, more physical hockey. Just this time Canada came out on top rather than Team USA. But the two games that took place earlier in the day, I missed both of those games, so I didn't see nothing but the score on those, and a few highlights. On Sunday, North America beat Europe again, 7-4. So through Sunday, we're at a point where I think all the teams in the tournament had played 2 games.
That's correct.
At that point.
Yep.
And North America was the only team that was undefeated. All the other teams split.
That's right.
Their series to that point. And then everybody took a day off on Monday. And then on Tuesday, USA played Finland. And I did watch that game. And because I was kind of interested to see how Finland would react, knowing that they haven't been playing physical teams like Canada or the U.S., and they did all right. I mean, they held their own. It was 3-0 USA going well into the third period, and then Finland came back and scored 2 quick ones and really pushed it at the end. At the end of the game, Finland had a 6-on-4.
Right.
Thanks to
power play throughout the end of the game.
Yeah, power play, and then, of course, they pulled their goalie to give them that 6-on-4 advantage. and they almost scored. I mean, USA had everything they could do to keep the puck out of the net. Finland almost came back and tied that game. So
they did. Quickie was astounding in that final minute, man. I don't know how he saw some of those pucks.
Yeah, and I think shortly after the game, USA did announce that Jonathan Quick will be the starter.
Yes,
for Team USA in game one of the real tournament.
And I believe that's the right choice. I believe. Yeah. That's the right choice.
Yeah. I think for right now anyway, that is the right choice. And then of course today's Wednesday the 14th. As we record this, there's 3 games. And one's already been played. The Czech Republic beat the North American team, which kind of surprised me a little bit.
Yes.
Neither one of us saw the game because we both worked. But the score certainly surprised me a little bit that the Czechs beat the North American team. Mm. So I'm looking forward to see the highlights on that one. I haven't even seen the highlights of that one. And then, of course, later tonight, as we record this, Sweden plays Europe. I think that'll end up being a win for Sweden. And then the game I'm going to watch is Russia-Canada. That's at 7:30. It's actually in just a few minutes from where we sit right now.
They're getting ready in the pubs in Montreal right now for that game.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that will conclude the preliminary or the pre-tournament games. Once the games are done tonight, and then everybody takes a couple of days off, and on Saturday the 17th we get going for real in this tournament. On Saturday and each day of this tournament, of the early round tournament, there's 2 games a day. One is essentially at 3:00, and then the other one at 8. All games are being played at Air Canada Centre in Toronto. So it looks like the way they've got the games spaced out, they're probably going to be charging admission for each game. So they'll have the afternoon game, clear the arena out, clean it up, get it ready for the night game.
Yeah.
And on Saturday the 17th, we've got USA versus Europe, and the Czechs play the Canada on the first night. And then Sunday night, we have Sweden versus Russia, North America versus Finland. And then on Monday, we have Europe versus the Czechs, Russia versus North America. On Tuesday the 20th, we have Finland, Sweden, and Canada versus USA, the game that we'll be glued to for sure.
Oh, yes.
Oh, no. I'm going to miss that.
How are you going to miss that?
I'm roughing that night.
Oh, my God. I would have to do some sort of get another buddy ref to
find somebody to do the game.
Bribe him to get him out there on the ice.
If I didn't need the money, I would do that.
My God! I need the money. DVR that joker.
Yeah, I'll definitely be DVRing it, and I'm sure the guy. There's a computer in the scorer's table at the arena. I'm sure he'll have the game on that computer, and we'll be watching it too. So I'll DVR it, but I'll probably have to find out the score as the game goes along, because I'll be getting home right at the tail end of that game. So yeah, I'm gonna miss it live, but I'll definitely catch it on replay. On Wednesday the 21st, North America plays Sweden, and Europe plays Canada in the late game. And on the 22nd, we've got Finland, Russia, and USA, Czech Republic in the late game. And that'll be it for the first round games.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to say, and of course I'm always focused mostly on the USA, Team USA in this time, but it is, I hope that they win the game against Canada. I think they're going to win against Europe. You don't know, but I don't want to go into that game against the Czech Republic at 1-1, 1-1.
Having to win, yeah.
That's going to be because the Czech Republic is a good team. Despite what anybody says, they've had their successes in these World Cup events and in the Olympics, and it just in the World Championships too. And I got to hope and pray that we can win those first 2 games. Yeah.
Yeah, and because Canada, Their third game is against Europe, and everyone in the know seems to think that that Europe is going to be the team that's going to be struggling at most against the rest of the field in that tournament. And so it seems to be, at least on paper, that Canada's finishing up with an easy game. So I agree.
Yeah.
They definitely need to beat Europe in game one, and then they need to somehow at least, pull out an overtime win or something against Canada, so that they don't have to win against Czechs. Because if the Czechs were able to beat North America, then they're a dangerous team anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this tournament.
Yeah.
I'm going to be watching essentially three teams. I'm going to be watching the North America team, USA, and Canada.
I echo what you're saying 100%. I don't know how closely I'll follow Canada, but for sure I'm going to watch Team North America and Team USA. That's going to happen. So, and I was happy to see that they put the C on Connor McDavid's jersey, for the game, because I think it's the perfect guy to pick for that type of a team that's never played. They've never been in the limelight before. It's a brand new team, and they picked the right guy, I think so.
So let me put you on the spot. In the USA-Canada game, I'm looking up SeatGeek right now. What do you think is the lowest ticket price for that game? The USA-Canada game.
I happen to know that ticket prices are very, very ridiculous in Toronto. So I'm going to guess $350.
Well, the lowest ticket price showing here is $185.
Oh, okay. Well, that might be like off, obstructed view or something.
It's section
standing room only or something.
It's section 104, which is behind the net that the Americans shoot twice at. So everybody wants to be down at the end where the Canadians shoot twice.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, it's in Toronto. So yeah, it's down in the corner, at one end of the building.
Okay.
I
was way off.
I'm sorry. Section 104 is.
If you were to pick,
$300.
Seats, Wayne, anywhere decent on the upper bowl or the lower bowl, say down towards the goalie net, all the way across to the other goalie net on either bowl, I would be shocked if they were anywhere under $350. Maybe $275, $300, something like that.
Yeah, lower bowl. The lowest I'm seeing is $225.
Isn't that something
for that game?
Incredible.
Now, in contrast to that, I look at what's the game I was looking at? Europe versus Czech Republic.
Yeah.
On September 19th. It's a Monday afternoon, so it's a weekday afternoon.
Yeah.
You can sit in section 308. You can buy 4 tickets right now for $5 a piece.
Oh, don't you love it, man? And someone will.
I would.
Someone will grab a flight from Prague and pick up those 4 tickets,
Yep.
After having lunch at Wayne Gretzky's.
Europe versus the Czechs.
Yeah.
Oh, they have an all-session pass you can buy. I didn't know that. You can buy an all-session pass. Any guesses to what that goes for?
You mean for every game?
There's only one available.
Good.
You can buy an all-session pass. I wonder if this is fake. $3,715.
Almighty.
It's in section 108, which is right behind the penalty box, center ice.
Oh man, that's something. That's
actually not directly behind. It's in the 26th row, but it's right in that section. So it's in one of the last rows of the lower bowl, but it's right at center ice.
Man,
$3,715. You can get yourself 2 tickets to every game of the tournament.
Good gracious.
Anyway, enough about ticket prices.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move on to talking about our next installment of our team previews. Last week we did the Metropolitan Division. This week we're going to do the Atlantic Division. And of course, last week you led the segment. I'm going to go ahead and lead it this month or this week because the Atlantic Division includes my Boston Bruins.
Right.
And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and go down through these alphabetically by team, and we'll go from there. So, obviously, the first team on the list for the Atlantic Division alphabetically is the Boston Bruins. My first comment about the Bruins, and obviously, over the summer, the Bruins picked up David Backes. They signed Anton Khudobin, who is the second time he's played in Boston. Boston seems to go through backup goalies every single season. They'll sign a backup goalie for 1 year. They've had Nicholas Fedberg. They've had Jonas Gustafsson. They've had, Khudobin before. Now they brought
before.
Yep, he was there before Carolina signed him, and then now he's back. After being played with Anaheim last year, I believe.
Yes.
And the Bruins also picked up Riley Nash as a free agent, and they got him from Carolina. He played at Carolina last year. But they've lost a whole lot more players than they've picked up. Backes, Khudobin, and Nash are the three biggest ones that they've picked up. But they've lost Max Talbot, Dennis Seidenberg, Louis Eriksson, Zach Trotman, Jonas Gustafsson, Lee Stepniak, Brett Connolly, Chris Kelly, Landon Ferraro. All guys that played in the NHL last year are all gone. Replaced only with these guys. So the Bruins are definitely a team in transition, which scares me for what's gonna happen to them this year. You just don't know what you're gonna get from them. But it looks like they're gonna be leaning a lot more on the kids that they have, and it's a good group of kids. I mean, they've got some guys coming up that are going to be really good hockey players going forward.
Yes.
But the question is, are they ready?
Right.
Ready or not, here they come, I guess. But some of the younger kids that they've got that are going to be coming up through. Frank Vetrano scored 36 goals last year in the American Hockey League. Got some time in the NHL. I personally, there's a lot of people that don't think that Vetrano is going to be a great player, but 36 goals in the AHL is not an easy feat either. He did it in just 36 games.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a major accomplishment in itself, and people underplay that.
Right. If you put the puck in the back of the net nowadays to the tune of 35 or 40 goals, I don't care, that NHL teams need that. And it doesn't matter where
And I'm not sure I don't think he's going to get 36 goals in the NHL, but if he gets 20, that's enough to certainly replace a lot of what Louis Eriksson gave us. Yeah. So another guy that they're going to have that has got a good shot at making the team is Danton Heinen.
Yes.
He's another guy that has played very little over the past couple of years that he'll be seeing a lot more ice. Ryan Spooner is another name that is going to see an expanded role over what he's had in the past. And David Pasternak is probably going to be on the first line with Marchand and Bergeron.
Oh, yeah.
He's only 20 years old.
What about that dude, Jakob Saboril?
I'm seeing mixed reviews with him. Most people believe he's still a year away.
Oh, okay.
They're going to need him sooner or later because Chara's not getting any younger. Zaboril's a D. So, and Charlie McAvoy went back to BU. He's a big part of their future back there on the blue line. He's probably 2 years away.
Yeah. McAvoy's going to be a force for them, man. Yep.
Another player I wished I could see more of is Zach Senyshyn. But he signed to go play in the KHL because he was from what I hear, he was getting impatient with the Bruins. They weren't giving him a top 6 role.
Oh yeah.
And they were letting him play bottom 6, and they were sending him back and forth between Providence and Boston. So he got fed up and went back to the KHL. So maybe after a season or two over there, he'll mature a little bit, and the Bruins will get another shot at him down the road. Brandon Carlo is another young guy, defenseman, that a lot of people don't believe that he'll be a full-time guy in the NHL this season, that he's still another year away. Senyshyn is not the guy I was thinking of. Koklachev is the guy that went back to the KHL, not Senyshyn.
Okay.
Senyshyn, he's still playing. He just got drafted last season, and he's still a year or so away. But Koklachev is the guy that bailed and went back to the KHL. I got those two mixed up.
No problem there.
Yep. So, the big problem with the Bruins back on D, that's their biggest question mark in my mind, is their defensemen. Is they've got 7 guys signed to a one-way NHL deal right now.
Right.
So that doesn't leave a lot of room for the young kids coming up. Back on D, they've got Torrey Krug, Joe Morrow, Chara, of course, Colin Miller, Adam McQuaid, John Michael Lyles, and Kevin Miller are all signed to NHL one-way deals. So they either got to go with those 7, or they got to trade or put 1 or 2 of those on waivers to make room for any young guys.
The Rangers' history against Boston, we get spanked a lot by you guys. So I've learned to be humble when I talk to Bruins fans, and I'll just say that you guys, the defense is the weakness, the biggest gaping weakness that I see for your team. The defensemen.
Yeah.
You got a good goalie, but it's
Tuca,
it's the defenseman that you're going to need. Torrey Krug and Adam McQuaid are going to have to step it up for you guys to. Because I think my personal opinion is that Boston, Buffalo, believe it or not, Buffalo and Detroit, they're going to battle for that 4th playoff spot. I think the Atlantic is going to have 4 teams this year, and I think that Boston is going to be one of them. And I think it's going to be an ongoing war. It's going to make games fun to watch. The Atlantic Division is going to be fun to watch because of the way these teams are shaping up. And I just think that's the area Boston needs to really, from my opinion, put their effort in and work on.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. And, I agree. Obviously, the Tuukka Rask is definitely a good shutdown guy back on net. But the problem is the weaker D that they've got, he's shown signs of wearing out towards the end of seasons. So they need to figure out a way. And hopefully having Hudobin in there will help.
Yeah.
Give Tuukka Rask fewer games and help make his season put a little bit less on his shoulders, so to speak.
I say another thing to contrast the weakness I see. There really isn't a team that I can think of in the East, not even Pittsburgh, that has the kind of seasoned, experienced veterans that Boston has. You've got Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci, Brad Marchand, Zdeno Chara, Adam McQuaid, Tuukka Rask. And now they got David Backes. You guys have some very, very seasoned, knowledgeable, know how to go through the 82-game schedule, ups and downs, all that is needed for, especially in the Atlantic Division, which is a challenging division. And I look at that as being a very big strength of the Bruins.
Yep.
That they can pull. Julian's going to have no problem putting 4 lines on the ice and tweaking them. And getting him to where he feels comfortable And I just think the Bruins are going to be better than they were last year, and they may make the playoffs. I think they stand a good chance.
Yeah, I think they're going to be one of those teams that's going to be right. Going into the last week of the season is going to be right there.
Yeah.
Heading into that last week, they will have not yet locked up a playoff spot, but are not yet eliminated. They're going to be one of those that's, either got to be 500 in the last week or a little above 500 to get in.
Right.
And I think it's going to come right down to it for them. So,
Right.
Which takes its toll on a team, because then they're essentially playing playoff hockey for the entire months of February and March.
Right.
Because they're
right.
They're fighting for that spot, and they're doing everything they can just to get in.
But they got the veterans that know about that. They got the guys. David Backes is, if he wasn't molded for the Bruins, I don't know. Right? He's a gritty, sandpapery professional.
Yep.
And he is perfect fit for the Bruins and the type of persona they have as a team. So
I agree.
I think that's not going to. I don't think that's going to phase them. Those guys are going to be ready for that in the locker room.
Yep. We'll see. And and it's hard. We're not going to get a chance to see the Bruins too much in the preseason in their full form, because so many of their players are playing in the World Cup. But it should be an interesting start to the season for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next team on my list, the Buffalo Sabres. They had kind of a rough year last year, but they were improved over the year before. They've added a couple players, Dmitry Kulikov, Kyle Oposo, Justin Falk, and not the one that's playing in Carolina. It's the other Justin Falk, Falk. And
Right.
Anders Nielsen they've added. And the players that they've lost are Mark Pysyk and Chad Johnson. So looking at the team that they've had last year, the biggest name that jumps out me as far as additions is Oposo.
Yep.
I think this team is going to go ahead and take the next step up the standings. I mean, that's my firm belief. They still have – biggest question mark I see is what's going to happen with Evander Kane. We've touched on his off-ice issues a little bit in past episodes, but that is yet to be resolved, whether or not he's going to end up playing on the team or whether he'll be suspended or whatnot. I don't know if you've heard anything.
I haven't, but Wayne, I think we touched on it on previous episodes of our podcast. I'm hoping that Boston looks at it as what does he do on the ice for their team, and goes with it from there. If it's not something where they feel like he's blending in and these issues that have been raised from what's happened, his escapades in Buffalo, overtake his confidence, then they need to address that accordingly.
Yeah.
And I think I think that they can do without an Evander Kane and still be fine, still be in the same position we are talking about them right now as really pushing for the playoffs. I think they stand a good chance of making the postseason this year.
Yeah, because they still have good forwards like, Ryan O'Reilly. They've got Oposo, of course. Matt Molson, which I still think he's a pretty decent player.
Great player.
Eichel, of course.
Yep.
Sam Reinhart.
Zemgus Girgensons.
Tyler Ennis. I mean, they've got a good group of forwards there. Defense is a little iffy. I mean, they've got, Rasmus Ristolainen, Josh Georges, Kulikov, who I mentioned before, Casey Nelson, Zach Bogosian, and Taylor Fedden. They also have Cody Franzen back there, too. And, of course, in goal, they've got Robin Lehner, Anders Nielsen, Linus Ullmark on the roster. So, I see the weakness, again, with this team being defense goaltending.
Yep. No, I agree with you. The lack of experience, they have guys on the team from other teams that maybe like Okposo, who's come over and they made the playoffs, but they really don't have the experience. Hey, gosh, we got 10 games left. We stand a chance of making the playoffs, and they got to really dig down deep and push hard. They're not in that mold yet. Yep. And this year could be a good testing ground for them to see, hey, what it takes to make the postseason.
Yep. Yep, I would agree with that sentiment. So I personally don't have them making the postseason, but they are going to be closer than they have been in a lot of years.
Yes.
This is a team that's climbing. They're rebuilding. They're growing. I just don't think this year is going to be the year that they burst into the playoff scene.
I would agree with that.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on to Detroit Red Wings. I believe, with the Red Wings, before we head into the team itself, isn't this the last season that they're playing the Joe Louis Arena?
That's right. That's the last year of the Joe.
Yep.
And they're going to move into the Little Caesars Arena. That's the name of the new arena.
Yep.
Little Caesars Arena, and they're going to have actually, if you fly over Detroit at night, and they're going to have a home game, they got a big picture of the Red Wing emblem on the top of their. It's going to be on the top of their stadium.
Oh, okay.
So that when you fly over, you'll see the Red Wing.
That's cool.
Which is going to be really cool.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, on to the team. This is a team that I see as a team that's going to be moving down the standings versus where they were. I still think they're going to be right there at the end. Again, fighting with Boston, possibly Ottawa, for that last playoff spot. But I think we're going to see. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the streak is going to end this year.
You might very well be right, Wayne. I just learned over the years never count out Detroit.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You just never can count them out. They have that lore about their team and all these.
Well, the thing is, they seem to find these players that out of nowhere end up being NHL stars. I mean, last year as example, Dylan Larkin. I mean, nobody.
Gustav Nyquist. Yeah, you could go right down the line on that. That's true.
Thomas Tatar. Nobody saw these guys coming, and then all of a sudden, Detroit. They're stars. So I don't know if it's the system they play or what. Certainly good scouting.
I think Ken Holland is a master at picking those kind of guys. He can see the potential.
Well, they certainly have a good.
It develops.
Yeah, they certainly have a good scouting department for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, as for the guys they've gotten, they did manage to get Franz Nielsen to come back. Thomas Vanek, who, I'm not sure what he's going to do. But Thomas Vanek is coming in to play for them, and Steve Ott. Now, they did lose Brad Richards to retirement, Pavel Datsyuk to pseudo-retirement, I guess. He decided he wanted to go play his last couple of years over in Russia. He's lighting up the KHL, but he's not playing over here anymore. And Joakim Emerson is also left the team. So I see, this team, you got, guys like Zetterberg and Nielsen, of course, aren't getting any younger. Vanek seems to be on the decline in recent years. Of course, they got young kids like Larkin, Nyquist, who's still doing well, Abdelkader, Thomas Tatar. Those are the guys that are the future of this team. Zetterberg, of course, I think I mentioned him. Darren Helm, he's been around there forever.
Yeah. Riley Sheeran, he plays well. I seen him on the ice. He does well.
Yep. And then back on D, they've got Nicholas Kronwall, Jonathan Erickson, Mike Green, Xavier Willett, Danny DeKaiser, Ryan Sproul. So,
me being a Ranger, I wince and shudder every time I hear the name Mike Green.
From his days in Washington.
He has pounded the Rangers in the playoffs before. So he has the potential. If he steps it up, he's a dangerous player, and he has the offensive punch.
Yeah, his offensive numbers haven't been as good in recent years as they were in Washington, and that could be the team. Yeah, obviously Washington plays a little bit more of a wide open game than Detroit does. And back in net, Detroit has Peter Mrazek and Jimmy Howard, who they're going to have to make a decision on one way or the other, or else they'll probably end up losing one to the expansion draft. So I think you'll look to see one of those two goalies moved. And my guess would be Howard, because Mrazek seems to be holding on to the starting job there. But yeah, overall, I think depends on how their young guys do if they take a step up. I think Detroit could continue the streak, but I don't know. My first initial reaction is I think this team is finally they'll probably take Boston's place as the team to get the closest to making the playoffs, but at the last second get knocked out.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be in the running, but I don't know that. I've learned never to count them out, but this may finally be the year where, and then you have the Joe is closing, and all these fans are going to be. You just don't know. There's all kinds of intangibles.
You're right.
That.
You're right. That could definitely give them a boost for sure.
Yeah.
So time will tell. But anyway, we'll move on to the next team, the Florida Panthers. I personally think that the Florida Panthers are one of the best 3 to 4 teams in the East, without a doubt.
Yeah.
With the talent they have. For some reason, Jaromir Jagr continues to produce. Despite being the ripe old age of 44 years old. I mean, he was drafted the year before I graduated out of high school. That's how long he's been playing.
Yeah. It is amazing. Absolutely. And he was in the K or the Czech League or something for 3.
He was in the KHL, yeah.
3 seasons? Yeah. I mean, at least that long. He was out of the NHL.
Maybe that gave him the break that he needed to continue over here.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that was the case. The KHL is not as physical a game or a league as the NHL is. So that could have preserved him a little bit.
Yeah, it's amazing.
For sure.
Yeah.
But in Florida, you have new players coming in. You've got Jared McCann. They made a lot of changes this summer. Keith Yandel, Mark Pysyk, James Reimer, Colton Sevier, and Jason Demers coming in. Players going out, they had Eric Goodbranson, Rocco Grimaldi, Dmitry Kulikov, Brian Campbell, Al Montoya, Quentin Hoden, Teddy Purcell, Willie Mitchell. And Mitchell retired, so he didn't go to another team. So they've made a lot of moves this summer, but the core of the team is still intact.
Yes. They've got great defense.
They've got
Ekblad.
They've got great defense. They've got great young forwards. And, you mentioned Ekblad. They've got Alex Petrovic, Yandel, of course, Jason Demers, Jacob Kindle, Steven Kampfer. Up forward, they've got, along with Yager, they've got Alexander Barkov, who's having a real good World Cup so far.
Yep.
Jonathan Huberdeau, who's a bright young star. Jussi Jokinen, Mr. Shootout Specialist. Vincent Trocheck, who's also an up-and-comer. Nick Bustad, Lawson Krause. Oh, wait, they traded Lawson Krause.
No, I think Lawson Krause is still, if I'm not mistaken, is a prospect to watch. He, unless something changed here very recently.
Yeah, Krause was part of that trade to Phoenix.
Okay, you're right. Yep, you're right. Here at the first of the year.
So our books that we have are outdated.
Yep.
Even though they were printed in July. Krause is no longer with the team. They did trade him away. And that trade did puzzle me, by the way.
Yeah.
Why they did that, because they don't need the cap space, but
yeah.
Which
is another thing we forgot to talk about with Detroit. They are in terrible cap trouble too. But.
That is true.
Yep. That
is true, and that's another reason why I think that they're on their way down. So
yeah,
that's right. They traded Krause and Dave Bolin. They did it as a way to get rid of Bolin's contract for a couple of draft picks. So anyway, but they have Riley Smith, who's another good player. I mean, their forwards are as good as any in the league, if you ask me. Yeah. But I put Florida very solidly in the playoffs.
Yes, I did too. I picked Florida to.
They won the division. Yeah, they won the division last year. I don't think that's going to happen this year, but they're definitely going to make the playoffs. They are going to grab one of the top 3 spots. And then, of course, back in net, they have Luongo and James Reimer, who's, if you had to have a backup goalie, I don't think he's a starter by any stretch, but he's definitely a decent backup.
Have to agree with you there.
Yep. So anyway, and of course, attendance is also increasing there in Florida. They've been doing much better at the box office than. Remember, a couple of years ago, they had a preseason game, and it was on 2:00 on a Monday. And I remember seeing a picture. There had to have been 200 fans. It was a split squad.
A split squad game.
Split squad game in the preseason against not an NHL powerhouse team. I can't remember if it was Columbus or Nashville or someone like that. That's not a traditional hockey market. And split squad Monday afternoon at like 2:00, and the arena was mostly empty. They've come a long way since then.
Yeah, I've watched them. You go back 3 or 4 years, Wayne, and the attendance. If the Rangers came to town to play them, it was like a home game for us. The roars that came out of the crowd. It was like that was actually Madison Square Garden was transplanted from downtown New York City and placed down there in southern Florida.
Kind of like what we see in Carolina a lot of times.
Yeah. It was really bad, terrible.
Yeah.
But they've come a long ways.
Yep. So anyway, enough about Florida. Let's move on to a team that doesn't have any ends.
That's right.
In fact, if they had an arena twice the size of what they have, they already have one of the biggest in the league, but if they had an arena twice that size, they could still fill it. Because the people in that city are crazy, and I do mean crazy, about their Montreal Canadiens.
Yep.
To the point where, it essentially drove PK Subban out of town. That was the big news coming out of Montreal this summer. The big trade, PK Subban for Shea Weber.
Yep.
And then, of course, Zach Redmond came in, Al Montoya, Andrew Shaw, and Alexander Radulov were all players coming into that team this year. Players leaving, Lars Eller, PK Subban, Tom Gilbert, and Ben Scrivens, who went to play in Russia.
Yes, he's playing in the KHL.
Yep. So I think Montreal is going to be a much better team this year. First and foremost, probably the biggest addition that they've made that didn't even involve a trade or a free agent signing is the fact that Carey Price will be back.
Yes. That makes a whale of a difference. And, he has to stay healthy and be consistent because, I don't know, they had Conlon in goal a lot last year. And he can win some games for them. They need to have a healthy Carey Price who can go 65, 70 games. And in order, if he's hurt again, if something happens to him, that takes away I think they're going to finish third. If Carey Price is injured again, or there's problems with the goaltending as far as consistent play, then that takes. I don't think Montreal will make the playoffs.
I agree. If Carey Price misses 30 games, I think he missed more than that last year, but if he misses at least 30 games this year due to injury, Montreal is going to be one of those teams struggling to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
But with him, if he's healthy for the full season, they're a lock. They're going to be in no matter what. Especially with some of the guys they want. I mean, if Radulov comes over here, that's another big question. They're kind of making the same gamble with Radulov that they did with Alex Semin last year. Of course, Alex Semin, it blew up in their face because, they signed him and as most of us could have predicted, didn't do a damn thing.
Yeah.
Because he didn't do much here in Carolina after the first season, to the point where they bought him out. He's back in the KHL now and will probably never play in the NHL again. But Radulov, from all accounts that I'm hearing, is not the same Alex Radulov that was being a spoiled brat over here playing for Nashville all those years ago. Because he's been in the KHL for a good, 5-6 seasons now?
Yeah, they said he's been there since 2012.
Okay.
2011, 2012 season.
So 4 seasons.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's 4 seasons removed from his last NHL game, but he dominated the KHL the time that he was over there. And they're saying he's coming back a more mature person, knows how to be a pro, and everyone believes that he'll be a nice, strong addition for Montreal. And of course, you got Andrew Shaw, who's another decent, and Shea Weber in the short term, I believe, will be a better defenseman for that team than PK Subban was.
Yeah.
Long term, I wouldn't say so, but in the next season or two, I think Shea Weber will make them a better team.
I think Shea Weber is going to flourish this year. I think he's a great, and I think that he's going to come into his own in Montreal. I think he's going to be a fan favorite. He's got that wicked shot, especially on the power play.
Yep.
So I can see it, and if Toronto starts lighting it up and their power play starts doing something, watch out, man. If Carey Price is healthy, they could really do some damage.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
Well, they were 10-2 with Carey Price, and of course
Last
they were.
year.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they're well below 500 without him. So yeah, they're a different team with Carey Price than without.
Yep.
So
And those fans at the Bell Center, they'll get riled up and going. What's her name, Madame Routot?
Yeah.
Doing the national anthem gets them all going. I mean, they will. That place that's the strength I see of them year in, year out. Is it's a very difficult place to win a hockey game.
Yeah, and that of course, being a Bruins fan, the goal horn that they've got is nails on a chalkboard to me.
Oh, yeah.
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 So yeah, I think Montreal is going to be back to their old self. Last year was just an aberration in my mind, simply due to the Carey Price injury. But unfortunately for us Bruins fans, they're going to be in for a dogfight this year, so long as Price remains healthy.
Yeah.
So on to the Ottawa Senators. Ottawa is a team that I think is headed straight to the bottom of the standings.
And
I'm just going to go right out there and say it.
I 100% agree with that.
I've got an uncle that lives in Ottawa that would definitely disapprove of my assessment, but but yeah, that is a team that is struggling to stay afloat in a tough division, and I think they are going to be, Derek Brassard may be happy playing in his hometown, but I don't think he's going to be happy with the results of the team. Their one shining star that they have there in Ottawa is defenseman Erik Karlsson.
Yeah.
But there's only so far that a guy like him is going to be able to carry a team. I mean, you've got their forwards, Mike Hoffman, Derek Brassard, Bobby Ryan, Clark MacArthur, Kyle Turris, Mark Stone, Zach Smith, Jean-Gabriel Pajot, and Curtis Lazar. You've got Chris Kelly, Nick Paul, and Chris Neal back there too. Defensemen, you've got Mark Borowicki, Michael Costa, Mark Matho, Cody Ceci, and Patrick Seeloff as a newcomer to the team. They also have Dean Phaneuf. I found it curious that the Hockey News has him pretty far down the depth chart.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure what his situation is. He injured?
Not that I've heard.
Okay.
Phaneuf has made his mark from time. He was liked in Toronto, and of course he's Calgary as well, had him. But he's been through some battles, and I don't know if his stock is as high as it used to be, especially when he played at Calgary. When
I think that's what it might end up being is age and
yeah. But now that could be dead wrong. He's a great player, and he just moved over to Ottawa last year.
Yeah.
So he may come into his own and pick right up and excel. Do very well.
Well, anyway, I don't know. I just look at this roster and I just don't see a lot of guys that really stand out to me as star players, other than obviously Erik Karlsson.
Yeah, Erik Karlsson is in the top 4 or 5 defensemen in the NHL. He is an offensive defenseman, and he is without a doubt the shining star on this team.
Well, yeah, he's a Norris Trophy candidate. I mean, he's that good. So
he's won it twice.
Yep.
And so I would put him in with the likes of Duncan Keith as maybe the top 2 or 3 defensemen in the NHL. And
yep.
If he keeps it up, future Hall of Famer. Their goaltending, Wayne is, I would say, is above average. With the Hamburglar and Craig Anderson, and they're going to have to play like they have been, standing on their head every game, I think, in order for Ottawa to have any chance. But their goaltending duo is not it's not anything to laugh at. They are pretty good. Anderson is a good goalie.
Oh yeah, yeah. But I'd rather have Tuukka Rask.
Oh, I agree with you.
So yeah, Ottawa's a team that's I know they're trying to retool, rebuild, whatever you want to call it, on the fly, but they're a team that's going to be I think are going to find themselves very quickly on the short end of the playoff stick. So now on to our second to the last team is the Tampa Bay Lightning. And this is the team that I think is going to run away with the Atlantic Division title. They've added basically nobody. They've lost basically nobody.
Yeah,
they're returning essentially the same team. Looked like for a while they were going to lose Steven Stamkos, but at the last second they managed to secure his duties to the tune of multi-million dollars. I don't have the figure in front of me, but
68 or 70 million, 65 or 67
yeah,
million.
I can't remember what it was. But yeah, he's going to be, there for several years in the future, and they still have guys like Victor Hedman back on D. They've got Anton Strawman, who's another huge guy back on D. Up forward, they've got Nikita Kucherov, Jonathan Drouin, who's going to be a star if he continues going at the rate he was once he became serious about being a hockey player again anyway.
Yeah.
Andre Palat, Alex Killorn, Tyler Johnson, who's lightning fast, Valery Filppula, Ryan Callahan. I mean, this team is just stacked top to bottom.
Yeah, they're Brian Boyle.
With good, strong players. Nikita Nesterov.
Yeah, Nesterov
is another good defenseman that they've got.
Victor Hedman. Oh God.
Yep, he's the modern day big man.
Yeah,
he basically assumed the role that Zdeno Chara used to have. So, so yeah, I mean this team is just loaded top to bottom. Back in net, they've got Ben Bishop, Andrei Vasilevsky. Now, there's been a lot of speculation that Tampa Bay at least should trade one of these guys. And I saw an article earlier this week that Tampa Bay decided they're going to hang on to them for a little while. They're going to, they're going to wait and see. And I think I saw a quote from Steve Yzerman saying, there could be worse things. If the fans feel down there that if they were to keep these two guys all the way through a playoff run and eventually win the Stanley Cup and then have to lose one of them to the expansion draft, there could be worse things than that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, they I don't know what their situation is in terms of players that have no movement clauses in their contract, but they could lose a guy. I could easily see Las Vegas coming in there and picking off a Nestorov or Valtteri Filppula or somebody that would hurt for them to lose.
Yeah,
but they have so many that it might not have any effect.
Or certainly have very little effect. They'll be able to recover from it rather quickly. So yeah, I firmly believe that Tampa Bay is going to be at the top of the standings at the end of the season, and I see them as probably, for certain, in the Atlantic Division as the most serious Stanley Cup threat out of that division.
I agree with you, 100%.
Time will tell on that. Oh, speaking of Stamkos, I saw a video today, and it was very intriguing. It kind of scrolled through my Facebook stream. It was a video from the year 2000 when Stamkos was a peewee. I can't remember the name of the tournament now. There was a play-by-play guy. It was like Canada's version of Little League World Series, right? Where it's televised and broadcast and everything else. Little 12-year-old hockey, right?
Yeah.
There were probably 6 names on both teams that were mentioned, and one of the plays that they showed on this little 2-minute clip was Stamkos going in and taking a shot on a goalie who was none other than Martin Jones.
Isn't that really?
And there were like 6 or 7 players. Peter Angelo, they're the new captain of St. Louis, was one of Stamkos' teammates on that team. And it was just the announcer was naming player after player after player, and they were all names that are all guys playing pro today. It was crazy seeing them all as 12-year-olds. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is a team that I can say for certain will not make the playoffs this year.
Right.
But they will be better than last year, thanks notably to Austin Matthews. Who is definitely projected to make the team right away, right out of the draft this year, because he was just drafted this summer. Also that's going to make the team, or they're expecting to make the team, William Nylander, their 8th overall pick in 2014, and Mitch Marner, their 4th overall pick in 2015. So all of these 3 players, if they all make the team, you essentially got a whole line right there, although they're all centers. But I would imagine a couple of them will convert to wing for a little while. But you add these 3 guys onto what they've already added. I mean, they're just doing a complete rebuild of this team right now in Toronto. So players coming in were Frederick Anderson, who's come in, although he just got hurt. I don't think it's a long-term injury, but he should be back in short order. He'll be their starting goalie, I believe. Forward Matt Martin, defenseman Roman Polak, and of course Austin Matthews coming in. Players leaving: P.A. Parento, Michael Grabner, and Jonathan Bernier. So they've made upgrades on their roster, in addition to some of these young guys that are coming in, these homegrown guys. I think Toronto would be best described as the Eastern Conference version of the Edmonton Oilers.
Yes, that's a perfect analogy.
A lot of young players that will be stars in the future, but they're not there yet.
And some of them that sparkle and shine, do very well, like Nazem Kadri.
Yep.
Tyler
Bozak. James Van Riemsdyk.
Yep. So
Leo Komarov, Joffrey Lupul. Yep. And then back on D, they still have Morgan Riley, Jake Gardner, Connor Carrick, Matt Hunwick. So yeah, this team is probably going to miss the playoffs by a fairly good margin, but they're going to make it closer. They're not going to be dead last, I don't think, in the East. Not like they had been.
I had them finishing 7th. in the Atlantic.
Okay.
Behind in front of the Ottawa Senators.
Okay. Well, with that in mind, let me pull up what I have as the projected standings for this division, because I haven't really alluded to exact, but I did set them in order according to where I think they'll finish in the standings. In first place, I have Tampa Bay winning the division, followed by Montreal, and of course that's hugely contingent on Price's health. Followed by Florida. I think the Bruins will actually finish fourth in this group.
I could see it.
And Detroit will finish just behind them. And Buffalo, Toronto, and Ottawa will round out the Atlantic Division. So I got Ottawa dead last, Toronto seventh.
Mine
Buffalo.
is virtually the same.
Really?
Yeah, I have the Tampa Bay. Now I want to make a kind of a point that my teams 4, 5, and 6 could switch, and it could be the sixth place team finishing fourth very easily. So I have the solid placements are Tampa Bay at 1, Florida at 2, Montreal at 3, Toronto at 7, and Ottawa at 8. And then 4, 5, and 6 could be any of these: Detroit, Buffalo, and Boston. I had picked Florida to finish. Detroit to finish fourth, because I just think I just never count them out. I've learned over the years, never count them out of a playoff race. So I put them down fourth, but it could very easily be Boston. I don't think it's going to be Buffalo, but I think Buffalo is going to make some good strides this year.
Yep. Well, what I do have Detroit fifth, but I still have them making the playoffs. I'm going out on a limb and saying 5 teams from the Atlantic Division will make the playoffs.
Oh, good thing I picked the Rangers to finish third, or we'd be sitting at home.
And of course, I think you had 5 teams coming out of the Metro to make the playoffs. So we'll see who's right.
It'll be interesting.
Yep, it'll be interesting. But yeah, I think you're right. I think 4 through 6, it's going to be a dogfight.
Yeah. It's going to make watching hockey very interesting, the Atlantic teams.
All the way to the end.
Yeah.
For sure. Yep. So, okay. Well, that's it on the team previews for the Atlantic Division. So all we've got left is just a couple of other segments. First one I call the KHL Minute, and I will let you go ahead and pick your story.
Okay. I'll start it off, and I think we're going to be the same on this one, Wayne. On the evening of September the 12th, either the 11th or the 12th, Sergei Mozyakin scored his 429th goal in top-flight Russian hockey, moving him into first place all-time as the most prolific goal scorer in Russian hockey history. And I would take it to mean the KHL, the Russian Elite League. He is the number 1 goal scorer of all time.
Yep.
This breaks the old record that was set 35 years ago by Boris Mikhailov or whatever.
Mikhailov, yeah.
Mikhailov.
Yep.
So he has passed them. He plays for the defending champions, the Gagarin Cup defending champions, the Metallurg Magnitogorsk, if I said that correctly. And they beat the Dynamo Minsk 5-4 on that night.
Yep.
So a big moment in history in the KHL.
Yeah, Boris Mikhailov is one of the most well-known names in the Russian hockey history. Obviously, he's the all-time leader in goals, or was until the other night, 428 goals. And the reason I think that record stood for 35 years is the fact that Russia's best players from about 1989 on, Russia's best players only played a few seasons in the what was used to be the Russian Elite League, is now the KHL. Those players now come over here for a significant part of their careers. So, and the reason Mozyakin got 429 goals, I looked into his stats, and he has played his entire career in the Russian league. Mm-hmm. So obviously having a guy play your entire career there is going to help you amass that amount of goals. So Mozyakin is now the Wayne Gretzky of Russian hockey.
Yes, he is. He is the way, and they predict he could go to 40, 42, 40. He's 35 years old. He's got several years left in him. So who knows how many goals he's going to score?
Well, I'm sure he'll get more than 500.
Yeah.
So that'll be big. So we'll have to come back in the story in a couple of years when he reaches 500.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but yeah, Boris Mikhailov, the old guy, the old 35-year-old record holder, he played on the old Red Army team. And of course, back in those years, that Red Army team stayed together for years and years and years, and they dominated international play for a long, long time.
Yes.
And as I say that, ESPN's showing highlights of the old Canada Cup against Russia and Canada. Anyway, the other story I pulled two stories because I had a feeling you were going to pull that one. The other one is, speaking of Red Army, CSKA, also known as the old Red Army team, based out of Russia, is now 8-1 through their first 9 games so far this season. Through Tuesday's games, they have 32 goals for, which is tied for first in the league, and they've only allowed 12 goals in those 9 games. So the key to their success has been balanced scoring. They've got 6 forwards and 3D with at least 5 points through the first 9 games. And, of course, playing very, very, very tight defense to allow only 12 goals in 9 games. What's that, 1 1/3 goals a game?
Yeah, that's
really, really low. So they don't have any standout names that NHL fans would know. I could pull some for you, but most NHL fans wouldn't recognize any of these names. But yeah, they're just doing it through very balanced scoring and very tight defense. But the old Red Army team, CSKA, is now 8-1 through the first 9 games.
Very impressive.
Yep. So on to our picks of the week. And I will go ahead and start as my pick of the week. It's kind of, it's just a website. It's one that we refer to. And if you're at all a hockey fan, you probably know about this site. HockeyDB.com is a site. It's run by one guy, and I should have pulled his name. I can't remember his name, but this site it's been up for years, and it just keeps getting better and better and better with time. But it's essentially run by one guy. He's run a huge database of just hockey stats, and it's not just NHL, AHL. You've got college, you've got juniors, you've got all the European leagues, and not just the elite leagues. They're lower tier leagues too. I mean, you name it. I've got a cousin who's actually got a profile on HockeyDB.com.
That's amazing.
Because he played one season at Plymouth State College in in New Hampshire, and that's Division III NCAA.
Yeah,
and he rubs it in my face all the time that he's the one in the family that's got a HockeyDB profile. Yeah. He's like, well, where's your HockeyDB profile? I'm like, well, I don't have one. So yeah, he does like to make fun of me on that one. So, but my favorite spot on that website is their HockeyDB morning report, and I've included a link in the show notes. It just gives you a scoreboard of all the games that have happened in the world at top level tier leagues, the previous day, and it gives you transactions and everything. Puts everything all on one page for me. So it's very, very nice tool that we have as hockey fans. So that's my pick of the week. And what's yours?
Mine is a little different. Not so much a website. You can check it out just to familiarize yourself with it. But I read the story on NHL.com this week about Denna Lang, who played for the Boston Pride and was severely injured in the Winter Classic game on January the 1st at the Gillette Stadium. She was not playing in the game. It was a practice session, and I've never seen clips of it, and probably wouldn't watch it if they had it. But she somehow went down on the ice in a corner, and she severely fractured several vertebrae in her neck. And it brought me to tears reading that article on her determination and incredible fortitude that she shows to go through each day of excruciatingly difficult, I'm sure, workout sessions in the pool and in the pick that I have, which is a gym called Journey Forward. It's www.journeyforward.com or .org, excuse me, which is it's a center that has been put together. It's in Canton, Massachusetts, near her home, where she goes to work out each day, and it's very very uplifting what she's doing. I stress to you that the whole interview and everything she was talking about, I never saw a smile leave her face, and I don't know how she finds the strength to do that. It's just amazing. But I would ask each of you to when you find time to take a look at that website, and also to go on NHL.com and read that article. It was very very moving. And,
yeah, I did see the article, and I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'll definitely take a look. And it looks like there's a video also attached to that article.
Yes,
which shows highlights of her recovery. So I will definitely go take a look at it. I know the story, obviously being a Boston Bruins fan, and watching their games on the local NESN channel. There was a lot of coverage on that when it happened. It happened at a practice that was being held at Gillette Stadium.
That's right.
The Boston Pride, which is the Boston franchise for the women's NHL, was scheduled to play a game, or they actually did play a game there, either right before or right after the Bruins in Montreal played theirs on January 1. And I did hear that story. Actually, it was just before, because they did have a tribute to her at the beginning of the Bruins Canadiens game. So I heard all about that story, and it was very, very heartbreaking to see stories like this. These freak injuries do happen.
Yes.
Hockey is a fast sport. The boards and glass can be very unforgiving. Another person that I remember in my past, Travis Roy, who played at BU.
Yes, Travis Roy. Terrible injury.
He suffered a spinal cord injury as well. He's actually a Maine native, so I was very familiar with his story. It's tough to see these things happen, but it does happen. Not sure. They've come a long way at preventing it, because it doesn't happen as often as it used to. But it is still something that happens, and USA Hockey does a lot of work trying to teach kids, especially, how to prevent these types of injuries. They teach these kids at a very young age on, if you are going down towards the boards, on how to position your body.
Yes.
As you hit the boards to help prevent spinal cord injuries. They teach the kids to go into the boards with their head down as much as possible, if you can prevent it, rather than trying to, look up. Because where these injuries happen is when the top of the head impacts the boards, and it basically compresses the spine. And that's when the real bad injuries occur. And I know Hockey Canada has also done a lot of stuff to try to prevent these injuries. So it is getting better, but unfortunately these injuries do take place, and it is good to see that Dena Lang has been made the best of her situation.
Yes,
and
she's definitely making gains in the sensation coming back into her upper body, in trunk stability and core strength and those type things as she works on her exercises. She's getting better and better. But
it would be amazing to see if she were able to get back on the ice.
Yes.
Even not to play at that, world-class level that she was before, but at least, get to the point where she can come out and skate, casually again. So we'll definitely be following her story.
Yes.
So on to a lighter note. We'll just go put our final thoughts in before we call it a podcast. I just wanted to note that now that we're heading into September, the World Cup tournament and the KHL aren't the only leagues playing anymore. There are a number of junior leagues in US and Canada and a bunch of the European leagues that have all gotten their seasons underway. So, man, we are so close, I can smell it.
Yeah. Not long now. Less than a month.
Yep, not long now. So I think, next week, the NHL teams open their training camps for real?
I think it's coming up here. Yeah, it's next week sometime. I think you're right.
I think a lot of the teams get started around 17th to the 20th, somewhere in that neighborhood. So yeah, I think on our next podcast for sure, we should start getting some news out of NHL team camps. So, but speaking of next week, obviously we're going to do a lot more World Cup coverage, and we're also going to look at the Pacific Division next week and go team by team on those. And then the following week, we'll finish up with the Central Division. And I think the following week, the World Cup will be over by then, and we'll be into preseason games in the NHL. And then, of course, everything gets going on October 12th for good. For real.
Yes. Yeah.
Finally. Well, that's all we have for this week, unless you have anything else you want to add.
No, other than it's great to work with you, Wayne. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, until next week, then, we'll see you later. Well, there you have it. As you can tell, Steve and I are super excited for the upcoming World Cup of Hockey tournament. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll take a look at the remaining 14 teams in the NHL, along with discussing the headlines of the week. Next week, we'll be previewing the Pacific Division teams. The week after, we finish our team previews in the Central Division. As we mentioned in previous episodes, most teams are participating in preseason rookie tournaments and exhibitions this week. Upon returning from those activities, NHL teams will be getting their preseason activities going. Preseason NHL games are now less than 10 days away. If you like the show, please show us your support by subscribing to it using your favorite podcatcher, program, or app. You can also share it with your friends. The Hockey Nuts podcast can be found on major podcast search engines like iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play Music. Just search for the term The Hockey Nuts in those apps. There are a few ways you can get involved with the show. You can email the show at feedback@thehockeynuts.com, or you can leave us a voicemail on our voicemail box at area code 919-960-1718. We will address your feedback on future episodes of the Hockey Nuts podcast. Also, you can tweet us. I'm at Wayne Halley 9. Steve is at SBall504man or SBall504man. Also, be sure to visit our website at thehockeynuts.com. The site is as new as the show, but we have a blog going already, and we've been hard at work writing midsummer update articles on all 30 NHL teams. In the future, we'll be offering not only a blog, but all kinds of resources on that website, not just for hockey fans, but for those of you who want to get involved in the game in your area as a player, coach, official, or even the Zamboni guy. As always, links that we mentioned in the show are also available in the show notes for this episode. Finally, we're also looking for a future guest for the show. Obviously, we're not experts on every team and league in hockey, so if you consider yourself more knowledgeable than us on a particular team or league, we certainly want to hear from you. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Hockey Nuts podcast, and until next week, we'll see you at the rink.